Excellent. Thank you, Robert. And good morning. As Robert said, this is our Thursday, August 19th session of the Small Business Bootcamp. As you are all aware, at the start of these sessions, we always like to give acknowledgement and thanks to our amazing network of community partners who, without their time and expertise, we would not be able to provide the quality presentations at no cost to small businesses that we've been able to provide. If this is your first time joining us, the Small Business Bootcamp was designed and is designed to help prepare small businesses of less than 20 employees return from the COVID crisis stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by our community partners, as well as a resource collective and content library. The Resource Collective is a collection of additional tools and guides provided by our community partner network to assist small businesses in running their business, marketing strategies, as other resources from returning from the COVID crisis. In addition to the Resource Collective, we also have developed a small business content library. This collection features over 140 recorded webinar sessions just as today, with varying topics of discussion and resources available. All of our recorded sessions, as well as those presentations, are available on our website, and those links will be shared momentarily. Additional resources for your review as the COVID-19 crisis continues to evolve, we recommend that you take note of these two websites for reference. The state of Arizona had created the ArizonaTogether.org website, and the Arizona Commerce Authority has created our own COVID-19 page, azcommerce.com/COVID-19, for all additional COVID-19 mitigation measures and resources. Also, for the Arizona Commerce Authority, there are numerous programs and resources available to businesses of all industries and sizes. So whether you are seeking just small business support, workforce solutions, or manufacturing, we have a program available for you. All information of these programs listed on the screen currently are available on the Arizona Commerce Authority's website. Special note to the ACA Small Business Checklist. This checklist program is an interactive and intuitive online resource to assist new businesses and current who are looking to start or grow to answer all of those questions for licensing and permitting information for local, state, and federal levels. So again, whether you are starting, operating, or growing, you can identify those essential pieces of information through the ACA's Small Business Checklist program. Again, some updates. These are not totally new updates. If you've been joining us for the past few weeks, we have talked about these in the past. The PPP loan forgiveness portal is open. We have recently done a special session regarding that information, but as you noted at the bottom of the screen, all of these links will be shared shortly. Again, some topics of discussion: the employee retention credit, as well as shuttered venue operators grant. That information will be shared. And there are still a few days left for the Innovation Challenge application. So if this is a program that is of interest to you, please check that out as soon as you can. Here is a look of our webinars coming up for the next 2 weeks. We are excited to kick off our next week's webinars with Growing Your Small Business with Artificial Intelligence, a new topic for the Small Business Bootcamp. Moving on to best practices for applying your CRM, also known as Customer Relationship Management tools. selling online with e-commerce tools and employee retention credit. Are you missing out? We have previously done an employee retention credit presentation, and this will be a second opportunity. So if you, once you get that link in the chat, if this is something you're interested in learning more about, we recommend that you join us for our upcoming session. Now to talk to us about talent acquisition strategy is a topic that I know so many of us would like to know more about. We're happy to present and introduce Mr. Shannon Taylor. Shannon is currently a director of talent acquisition for Republic Services and leads the talent acquisition strategy and process recruitment, and with a team of over 70 and responsible for 13,000 hires annually. Shannon and I had the opportunity to talk a little bit before this session started, and I know his experience and expertise we will all find value in today. So Shannon, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn the time over to you.
Well, thank you, Faith, and good morning, everyone. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some insights with small business. You know, small business is something that is near and dear to my heart. My father has been a small business owner for as long as I can remember, and so you know, I understand and can empathize with the challenges, and particularly as we embark on sort of this post, you know, this new wave after COVID and the candidate market. And you know, the biggest question is always kind of where are they? So for today, a couple of things that we'll do, and I'll kind of set the groundwork, because I want this to be as interactive as possible, and I really want to be able to share information and answer questions that are going to be helpful and useful for you. So I prepared some slides for us to kind of go through, but please feel free to enter questions in the chat. Faith will be kind of moderating for me just to make sure that you get the most out of our engagement this morning. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get this party started. So let's see here. I am going to do this, and then I am going to do this, and then this.
Shannon is sharing his screen. Please remember those questions you would like to have answered. Please post those in the Q&A. We're going to turn the chat over for more of those discussion-based conversations, and we don't want to miss your question.
Perfect. Well, I don't know that I can give myself a better introduction. I think Faith kind of laid it out for you guys, but I will quickly try to do a little bit of justice. So as you can see, there's my large face and big head, but who am I? I am Shannon Taylor, as Faith mentioned. And so I currently lead the talent acquisition function at Republic Services. And we probably run somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000. We've gotten up to about 13,000 hires annually, and it varies year to year. I've got global talent acquisition experience, so I've recruited around the world with some very great brands and led talent acquisition and great teams, whether it was with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, Norwegian Cruise Line, as well as Hard Rock International. I currently am the treasurer for the Arizona SHRM State Council, and if you don't engage with Arizona SHRM, I would recommend doing so, particularly as it can be really beneficial to small businesses as you're running into sort of HR questions, issues, leaves, things like that. It can be the Arizona SHRM and the State Council and SHRM can be a really great resource for small business owners as they look to manage through their human capital. I'm a father of three. I've got two boys and two girls and a boy. I have a 7, 6, and 3-year-old, so they definitely keep me busy. But my lovely wife of 13 years keeps me on point and moving in the right direction. She's the boss. I just live there. So we'll get going. So I thought I'd kick off a bit and talk about the state of the job market, and that there are more than 9.5 million Americans were unemployed and were looking for work in June. However, at the same time, there were about 9.2 million job openings in relation. And so when you think about that, you wonder where are all the applicants, right? You see, right, and you see teacher shortages where schools are cutting away specialized teaching classes because they don't have enough teachers to deliver a quality education to students. You look at breweries where they're having to close their doors, or restaurants having to close their doors for a day because they don't have enough staff to deliver against the expectation of their customers. Or you look at other places, restaurants, where they're streaming down their menus and simplifying the work because they're having high turnover and they can't find enough staff. And so what some of you may have heard is the Great Recession of Great Resignation is real. And candidates, where in years past, candidates were, you put a job out there and candidates would apply, and you could really be picky around what you were looking for, and you could have more of an employer. The employer was very much in charge of kind of that process of, well, tell me why you should work for me, and what are the great things about you, and sell me on your background, and then I can decide as an employer whether or not I want to see you as a part of my team. And as you can see, that has sort of shifted. And one of the big things that as I look at this in talent acquisition, get to do this every day, is I've sort of compared what we're seeing and experiencing from a recruitment perspective. It's very similar to the housing market. And for those of you that have tried to buy a home here in the Valley, or in a lot of areas across the nation, you will know that, one, you go into a home, if you can get in to see it fast enough, you've got to go in, make a quick assessment, and then you've got to come in with a strong offer. And sometimes that offer is above what the house is maybe worth, or what you believe it to be worth. And there's multiple offers at the same time. And that, to me, is very similar to what's happening today. The value of employees has, post-COVID, has increased faster than what most employers are ready for, right? Nobody really could have predicted how strong the labor market and the demand for things, travel, restaurants, delivery of waste, like, and picking up a waste in the market that I'm in, and other things would have come back so rapidly, yet the people didn't come back with it at the same rate. And so the ones that did, their value had increased significantly, some cases 20 and 30%, where you may see companies doing merit increases or cost of living increases at the rate of about maybe 2 to 3.5% in some cases. So you can see there's a huge delta. And so as you would engage with candidates, that's kind of what we're seeing right now is, one, candidates have choices, and then they are getting multiple offers. And so it's really important that you do a lot of different things that we'll talk about today to help sort of be as competitive as you can be, to make sure you're doing the right things. Because ultimately, as we think about what we're experiencing, the reality of it is there's no silver bullet that's going to solve it. So nothing that I'm going to tell you today, one single action is not going to solve the recruiting challenge, right? It's going to take a collection of actions that you're going to need to take, or maybe consider, in order to help mitigate your recruiting challenges, and hopefully land you the right candidate to help you continue to grow your business and meet the expectation of your customers. So first we'll talk about is recruitment marketing. And recruitment marketing is really key as we think about how candidates will engage with opportunities, how you get your jobs out there, how you build pipelines for folks to consider, and all that kind of good stuff. So the first thing about it is, what's your employee value proposition? In this market, candidates are at a high demand. And so as a small business, you want to ensure that you have a really good value proposition laid out there that people can really kind of connect to and get behind, as you think about what is that value to them as an employee of your organization or your company, right? And so making sure you have a really good streamlined employee value proposition is really going to be one of the things that stands out as candidates are looking for more things like, to give you an example, sustainability has been a big popular topic lately as we think about people wanting to get connection to the earth, right? And so at Republic Services, we realized that being in the waste business and making sure that we're disposing of the the trash in sustainable ways that protects the environment for future generations to come, we created an employee value proposition through our recruitment marketing efforts that people could get behind and they can see themselves and be proud of. And so we developed what we call our We Work for Earth campaign. And that We Work for Earth campaign really talks about tapping into different groups of people, whether it's those that are interested in sustainability, those that are interested in doing good in their community, those that want to have a great life and leave things along for their children. Leveraging the campaign and the employee proposition of organization and come work for Earth and do great things is a way that you can get a message out there that people want to get behind and actually then start to want to be a part of. Another piece around recruitment marketing is really understanding and engaging your current employee workforce. Obviously, with small business, if you're having, whether it's 1 to 2 employees or you're up to 20, it's important that referral network is really key. And so engaging your current employees, making sure that they're having a great experience working with you and for you, they will tell their friends, and referrals have always been, at least in my experience, the best way to fill roles. And those are the most candidates. And typically the referral has a better connection to your organization because they have someone who's put their name out there, have a connection to them. In most cases, good referrals, they don't want to let the person that referred them down. And so you'll have longer tenure, more engaged employment, and obviously success begets success. And so you can continue from a marketing perspective, driving how great it is to work for your organization, your employee value proposition, and what it's like from a benefits perspective, or time off or flexibility or opportunity, or all of that kind of good stuff can really drive those programs and engagement as you look to recruit and hire more people. And then as well as incentivizing those programs, right? So it can be a challenge in some cases for small business because I can empathize, right? You're always wanting to make sure that your cash flow and things like that are there. But if you could have small incentives or any type of incentive on referral programs, maybe it's not a dollar amount. It could be a paid day off. It could be a team lunch. It could, something. It doesn't have to be $1,000 referral bonus if you bring in a person. It could be, hey, if we can get 10 referrals, or you do a contest, on social media where you have your employees maybe share the job openings on their social media, and those who get the most likes or get the most shares or something like that, maybe you give them a $25 gift card for lunch or something like that. So get creative around how you can engage your current workforce to really be the ones that share the message around joining your organization and the opportunities that you currently have available. Your career page, you want to make sure that your career page is easy to navigate, clearly laid out, and tells the story of your organization, right? And particularly when you think about the opportunities that you have, and representing the communities that you serve, right? Diversity is a big topic. And so as you look at your career page, you want to make sure that that page has information on it that looks like you want to be a welcoming organization that is for all individuals. And so leveraging different images of people of color, of women, of all walks of life can be really a game changer from a career page perspective and attracting candidates to your organization. Video is really, really key. One thing is people want to see themselves at your organization. And so if you can use images that they can relate to, people will feel more comfortable. They get a clear understanding of what the roles are and what the company's all about. And then they can really make, decisions around, whether they should apply or not. And that will really make a big difference. And then the other piece is job postings and your job descriptions. There's always a discussion around, how do you structure job postings? And there's do you do job advertisements versus job descriptions? And what I would say is your job description is really the cover of the magazine, right? You want to make sure your job descriptions are compelling, short and to the point. You don't want a whole lot of words. You really want to, if you can, keep your job descriptions under 300 words, 500 max, really sharing, a broad-based why someone wants to, what's the exciting part about this role, and then what are the skills that you're looking for, are really going to help as you look to attract candidates, and also looking at the language that you're using, making sure that you are not using a male-dominated language or overly feminine language, but you're using inclusive language in your job description so that all types of individuals will have an interest and won't find words in there that may say, "Oh, this is not necessarily a job for me." And we found that, particularly at Republic, by evolving our job descriptions, making them more inclusive, and talking about the why someone would want to join and be a part of our work has been really beneficial. We still have a long way to go. Our job descriptions aren't perfect, but it's incremental steps that you can take and to actually get candidates to take an action on your jobs and actually apply. But more importantly, it can take up to 7 interactions of whether it's a referral, whether it's a career page, whether it's looking at job postings, before a candidate will take an action on your job. And so it's really going to be a lot of continued leveraging of marketing. I think earlier on, the Faith mentioned around another webinar coming up around CRM. And one of the things that she, as a small business, is every customer could be a potential employee. And so, or they could be a potential referral source for you. And so leveraging your CRM and those type of tools around, opportunities can also be a really great resource as you look to cast a wide net and do it in the most economical way possible. And so before I go to my next one, any questions, anything like that at all? All right, well, don't be shy. Feel free. If they are, just drop them right in the Q&A and I'll be happy to answer them. All right, so let's go to the next one. So, always the big question is, where do you find the candidates? And here is just a small list of some of the more digital types of resources and locations where candidates can engage, right? So whether it's, on Facebook, there's Indeed, which is, the world's largest job site, right? There's Twitter and Instagram, XM Radio and Amazon are some of the few that I kind of have here. And there are many, many more that you can leverage to get to a broader audience. The one thing I really like about a lot of the ones that I've shared here is you want to go where the people are. You want to go where people engage. And so leveraging things like ads on Amazon to get the word out there can be really a different way of approaching attracting candidates. I always say is you can then stream it down to a demographic, an age group, an area, and those individuals will be fed your job postings as an example. You can do that with whether that's Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, particularly as you're looking for these, call it younger demographics. They communicate on these sort of channels, and leveraging short videos, being more raw and authentic versus very what I call curated sort of images can be really impactful. XM radio or streaming radio, YouTube, other things like that can be really impactful as well. As most folks may not listen to AM, FM, but they are streaming music. So whether that's the Pandoras of the world or any of those type of streaming services and creating ads can be a really great way to get your opportunities out in front of a particular group. And the great thing is you can really target that particular group that you're looking for. Another tool out there is, and some of you may have heard of this, is programmatic advertising. And programmatic advertising is a really great way to maximize your marketing spend using artificial intelligence and making sure that you can actually blast your opportunities out to various outlets. So let's just say you have a $1,000 marketing budget for your role. You can leverage the programmatic advertising AI solution, and then it will maximize that $1,000 spend to hopefully reduce your cost per cost per click, cost per application, things like that, where you may not necessarily be maximizing that spend if you're using it manually, and you're, maybe saying, okay, I'll do 200 on Instagram, and maybe I'll do 500 on Amazon, and maybe I'll do another, I'll do a sponsored ad and I'll spend the remainder on Indeed. Programmatic will do that sort of for you, and make sure that you're reducing that cost that cost per application. So, great question. And I'm going to grab a few questions here really quickly. And one question is should job postings contain the employee value proposition, benefits, what's unique about the company? And I would say absolutely. Without going into a lot of detail, I always say is you want to give candidates the sizzle about an opportunity. Like, why do I want to come in? What's the great part about joining your organization? Maybe you have a unique benefit, or that you provide benefits, right? It could be that you have a flexible PTO, or anything like that that's going to show and get someone excited. I think is an absolute key when talking about putting that in your job postings. Absolutely. Another question that I have here is regarding keeping employees happy. So you have a supervisor that will tell employees that they're doing it wrong, that they should do it better, they should know better. I've told you before, this has caused a lot of turnover. What's a better way to tell an employee to do it right? And I think it's going to come down to a leadership style. And what I would say is providing employees feedback is key to their development, and also obviously the delivery and the expectations that you have of your business. And so it's not always, one of the things that I always say, it's not what you say, but how you say it. And if someone is continuing to do something incorrectly, or making the same mistake over and over again, maybe that is maybe having the conversation around, I know that we keep saying the same issue. Let me connect you with a buddy, right? So maybe we need to get you some more training. Maybe, I always say is you can leverage the show, tell, do as a way in which to get employees to see that, one, you believe in them as an employee, you really want them to get it right, and you're also invested in their development. But also at the end of the day, you're also preparing yourself with the necessary steps and actions should you have to go down another route, and without losing that employee's engagement. So I would definitely, have a conversation and let them know, hey, this is the things that you have opportunities for. Here's how I'm going to go about helping you with them. I want to assign you to work with John Doe or Jane Doe, and then we'll track along the way. So I think that's going to be a really great way for you to have that type of tough conversation without losing the engagement of an employee. Really great question. Let's see. Should job postings include salary or salary ranges? I would say that's probably more of a preference. In the state of Colorado, for example, it's required that you provide a salary range in all job postings. And so at Republic Services, I would say if you talk to some hiring managers, they hate it. I actually had one email me the other day because LinkedIn is using a new tool that gives you kind of job salary estimates, and he wasn't happy that the estimate wasn't exactly the same as what we would pay, and he thought it was sort of hurting our candidate attraction. So it's there's no right or wrong answer there. I would say you will be careful about that, depending on if you have current employees, making sure that, for example, if you're going to put a salary out there, it's fair and equitable. So if you're looking for sales individuals and you'll say you put it out there for $15 an hour, but your sales team's making $10 an hour, and they're going to come back to you and go, well, what is this? So you just want to be careful about what type of information you put out there. In some cases, it's competitive salary does help, and really having those one-to-one conversations with candidates based on their experience and that sort of thing can be a bit of a safer bet. But I believe that, if you have your pay equity in place and things like that, it may be it could be an advantage to you. But also make sure you do your homework on salary and salary ranges, particularly as you don't want to also put a role out there and you're underpaying in the market. That could also kind of fire back on you as well. And it kind of goes to the same question, which is a great question, Lisa, which is around, should pay be included on Indeed postings? Again, it's going to be more of a preference. I know Indeed has been doing some algorithms very similar to LinkedIn around giving estimates on what the pay may be. And sometimes that can be an advantage to you. But again, it just kind of what I laid out, particularly around just the, it can backfire on you if, one, you're not competitive in the market with that number, and then secondarily, if that's going to create a pay equity issue with your current employee base. Great questions. These are fantastic. So definitely keep them coming. All right. So again, this is where you find the candidates. This is definitely not an inclusive list. There are other things out there, and ZipRecruiter is a really good tool. Craigslist can be a really good tool as well, depending on the roles that you're looking for. And then also signage, right? One of the things that I do particularly is I am always going around when I'm traveling or when I'm, wherever I am, and I go to businesses and I look at sort of their now hiring signs and what are they putting out there and things they're doing. And, I was in Florida last month and was driving by a Checkers, and, their sign was, they had it on the big marquee, and it basically said, apply today, start tomorrow, get paid, by the end of the week or something. I can't remember exactly what it said. And it just speaks to the speed in which hiring is going to be important, and that there's opportunities for people to earn fairly quickly. And so you want to make sure that whether you're doing that or whether it was a Chipotle that I had gone to in Atlanta, where on the, out there they had a QR code and they were doing hiring days. So between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. every Monday, you could schedule a time, leveraging a QR code to come into the store and interview with the team there for opportunities. And so you want to get creative around, creating the space to have interviews and get those things done, because you want to try to capture the candidates where they are and meet them where they are, which will ultimately help you meet your hiring needs as well. And before we switch to one, I'll see what else question we have here. How do you avoid, machine readers blocking resumes? They search for keywords and therefore may block possible candidates from getting reviewed by human resources and therefore an interview. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So one of the things around applicant tracking systems is there is a level of, to make it efficient. A lot of organizations and a lot of ATSs use pre-screening questions, or they'll leverage artificial intelligence to really kind of look for keywords and then make sure they're bringing the best candidates to the top, or even weed out candidates, right? And for candidates, it's important from a candidate perspective that if you have a resume, to make sure I call it search engine optimize your resume based on the role. So for me, a resume is very much a living, breathing document that speaks and highlights the skill sets that I have that are transferable to the opportunity that I am applying to. So if you have a resume today that is static in nature, you're probably missing out on opportunities because every job has a different sort of thing that they're looking for. And we have so many things that we do in our roles that we need to highlight based on the opportunity that we're looking for. There isn't necessarily, without turning that off from a company perspective, without turning off that sort of filter, there isn't really a way for you to get around it. I will tell you, we've done a lot of things at Republic because we're hiring from laborers and sorters to drivers and technicians, all the way up to CEOs. We want to make sure that our apply experience is solving for what I consider the lowest common denominator. So if I can get and make sure that my apply experience and my sourcing techniques can be as easy for us to identify a laborer or the ones that are on the front line of the business, it's going to solve for us being able to identify our next HR person or marketing person or vice president or and so on and so forth. And so one of the things that we've done is really stream down our apply process. We don't necessarily require resumes. Candidates can put in some of their work history, but a lot of it is wanting to remove the barriers of entry to candidates so that we can start having conversations with them, learn about who they are, and then try to make the best decisions possible is about bringing individuals into the organization. And so that's a great segue into my next slide, which is the candidate experience. So as we think about candidate experience, this is one of the most important pieces of the talent acquisition strategy. And, the first piece is streamlining that apply process. Job applications that take longer than 5 minutes to complete, they will see a 50 to 70% 75% candidate drop-off rate. And that can be, hard when you're already having a low candidate flow. So doing things to reduce the amount of friction in the apply process can go a long way. So whether that is, like I mentioned, we reduce the requirement to upload a resume, or it's streamlining the pre-screening questions, or maybe it's if you have an assessment process, evaluating the assessment and where you deliver that assessment in the apply process. How long is that assessment? And are you seeing candidates fall off, and where are they falling off? So that way you can modify and streamline that apply process to make sure that you're getting, you're capturing as many candidates on the front end and not necessarily losing them through a long, convoluted, interview application process. So, and then clear communication, right? One of the things is, according to Talent Board, right, 70% of hiring companies force job seekers through complicated career sites, but fail to acknowledge their applications with an email or a letter. And so it's important that once you've got someone in that apply process, the engagement begins. And so this engagement and communication with the candidate, whether it's an email or a recognition, can even be text in some cases, that you've received the application, it's going to be reviewed, can go a very, very long way around that candidate, how they're feeling about your company, about the experience, and what to expect kind of as going forward. And I always say is that the more you can provide candidates around what to expect, the lower their anxiety will be, the more engaged in the process they will be, and the more prepared they're going to be for whether they're meeting with you or someone in your company around an opportunity. Let's see, I got a couple more questions here, so let's do this real quick. Yep. So, and then we'll talk about some of the other pieces, but as a small business, it's hard to compete with bigger companies, pay, benefits, etc. Any tips on what to do to encourage candidates to go with the small company? Are we in a market that's giving company equity is a must? Depending on the role, right? So I think giving company equity, and particularly in a small business, can be a challenge depending on the role. It could be an opportunity to leverage that when you're trying to, maybe you can't compete on salary, equity and potential opportunities for upside potential, whether that if the company is sold or if they do some sort of IPO or something like that, can be a really good tool from a total rewards perspective to attract candidates to a small business. One I always say is, when you know that money is not always everything to employees, and small companies have a lot of benefits that larger companies may not provide. And what I mean by that is, maybe the pay in larger companies may have a deeper pockets around pay. They may have a broader base type of benefits and things like that. However, they don't always apply those things. And so maybe your pay, it may be lower than, let's say, a Republic Services, but you may provide an opportunity where someone's going to get more broader experience in a particular role, or they're going to have more say in how things are delivered, or the bureaucracy of getting things done. You have less bureaucracy in how things are communicated and things like that. So there are a lot of sometimes work delivery benefits that attract individuals to small business. It's the family atmosphere. It's the get to know it. Everyone knows everyone. It's the connection to each other that people long for. And it's the entrepreneurial spirit that can be attractive to individuals that are looking to come to a small business versus working for a large, whether it's a publicly traded company or a larger employer. Our company is looking at new ways to fill resource gaps beyond hiring W-2 workers, using gig platforms to fill burst needs or try before you buy it hires. Yeah, I mean, the gig economy is real. And I think the gig economy is some of the reasons why, small businesses are experiencing some of these shortages and talent shortages that are happening today. When we look at things like, the restaurant, right, hospitality space, right, big push around servers are no longer there. And, the folks that work in hotels that maybe cleaning rooms and things like that, those individuals have kind of moved on to other opportunities because of the pandemic and have leaned into the gig economy, whether that is, doing, ad hoc jobs with Uber or Lyft or any of the food delivery services, because they can work when they want to work. They can name their hours and in some cases make the same money that they were making in their last role. So I believe, yes, you're going to have to continue to get creative around how you bring workers in. The traditional W-2 worker is, I think some people find value in it, others don't. And so it's really going to be important that you consider, do you leverage a temporary workforce and how do you sort of structure that within your organization, which can be very beneficial as you look at spikes in demand in your business, right? So, leveraging those, having W-2 workers and your demand, your demand for your business can sometimes drop, particularly in times of year. Having that flexible ad hoc workforce can actually be a value to your organization versus carrying that headcount when maybe times are a little bit slower. So definitely something that is happening. And even large companies like myself, I leverage contract staff to support our peaks and valleys from a recruitment perspective. I structure the team based on kind of our consistent of our business. So what is our baseline? And then I augment the staff for peaks and valleys like seasonality and other things. And, even for this pandemic, we are looking for temporary staff to kind of help with the increased demand from a recruitment perspective, because at some point it will level out. And we don't want to be left, carrying or having to impact employees and, lay off employees and things like that, or have downsizes. It's not something that we like to do as an organization. And so we want to make sure that we are staffed appropriately to meet the need, and then we augment based on demand. I'm hiring for a remote position and have candidates from different states. One great candidate who just moved to Spain. What do I do? What do I need to consider in hiring employees who lived in a different state or even a different country? That is a tough one, right? I mean, I think, one of the things that from a different state perspective, I think it's going to make sure that you have the right processes in place from a payroll perspective, so you can manage the tax implications of that employee and withhold appropriately based on, their state and where they live, and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure you connect with your HR resource around that piece. In different countries, you want to just, that can be a little bit of a challenge as well, right? Understanding, international laws around employees in other countries, and how do you sort of leverage, just from a pay perspective, are going to be the things that are probably the biggest ones that stand out to me. I think when we look at just the location wise, right, getting the right technology, making sure you have the right security. If they're in other countries, making sure that they come from a place that has stable internet and things like that, so that you have a connection, and then also that you have set the groundwork and the ground rules around, work and expectations. I think it can be a really great way for you to expand from your talent pool perspective, from just a local area to maybe, a part of the section of the country or region to the entire globe. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but you'll want to make sure that you do your homework around, the benefits from a tax perspective, and then also particularly when you're hiring individuals that live in a different country? What are the sort of parameters that you'll need to follow to make sure that that's handled appropriately? And then the other piece around a candidate experience is, be prepared. One of the things that is important is make sure you're reading, you're prepared for the candidate. You have questions. You start on time. You're not trying to grab their resume and figure out who they are. Being prepared, it really shows the candidate that you are really serious and engaged in who they are. And really starts off that continued excitement about the opportunity, right? You now have a streamlined apply process. You've communicated with them along the way. You've got them, you're preparing for that interview, and you want to be ready for when they walk through the door. And I think that will go a long way, particularly as you want to try to stand out and be a differentiator in a market with lots of opportunity. Having that efficient interview process. This to me is so important. In this market, number one, candidates have options. And so, the idea of having candidates come back for interviews, multiple times, I would say more than twice is a disadvantage to any organization that is trying to hire talent and hire talent quickly. So to me, speed to hire is key. So getting the right folks in place, getting candidates in, getting them to meet with the right people, and then consolidating that process to make a swift decision will help you significantly be able to fill your open positions, close candidates, and ultimately continue to thrive from a business perspective. Now, what happens is that candidates will, when I mean speed to hire is key, the candidates can leave your interview, and they may have multiple interviews in the day, leave your business, interview, go to another business, interview, and get a decision and actually walk out with an offer. And so you want to understand that that's the market that we're in. And so you really want to make sure that you are, getting those through. And even at Republic with our roles, like for example, we really work through now a one-day offer process for our drivers, our frontline positions. Drivers for us are a really key role. And so, we have come down to where candidates now will come in for an interview, meet with the necessary people. We will give them a realistic job preview the same day, make the hiring decision because we'll get that hiring group back together, make that hiring decision. So that candidate walks out with an offer. And in some cases, we are also trying to get them to accept the offer, start the background and the drug screen, and schedule it while they're there. So when they leave, they can actually go get their drug screen right away. And so it's really about trying to make sure that we are grabbing candidates that we like, making quick decisions, and getting them on board as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And then, candidate feedback, right? That's important. 83% of candidates share their poor experiences with friends and family, according to Aspire Cambridge. And so it's important that as you're getting that efficient interview process and making that decision, providing that candidate with the feedback, like, yes, we're going to move forward, or no, we're not going to move forward. They can, with sites like Glassdoor and other things, candidates are more likely, unhappy candidates are more likely to go to Glassdoor and tell people how bad of an experience they had with your company, right? Those that have a great experience, they don't necessarily go to Glassdoor at the highest percentage unless you really exceed their expectations. And so it's easy to get bad reviews. It's hard to get good ones. And so you want to make sure that you're always focused on that candidate experience, because that's the thing that's going to win the day. And it's going to be a vicious cycle around recruitment marketing and attraction, because if your organization gets a bad reputation in the market, it can be a real challenge for you to attract quality candidates to the positions that you're looking to fill. Let's see. All right, let's see what else we have here. And with that, I'd love to answer some questions that have come through. Are there any other questions or anything like that I can share with the group, or any insights?
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon. Like you just mentioned, if you have those questions, we still have some time left in our session. So please submit those questions in the Q&A. I guess, Shannon, my question would be, what is, and you've kind of shared this in your presentation, but what do you feel is the biggest challenge for small businesses when identifying qualified talent?
Yeah, I think when you think about small business, the biggest challenge I would say is number one, you have to kind of, with the limited number of candidates that are out there in the market, you've got to be able to look at transferable skills, right? And so, and it's something I call it the 80-20 rule, right? And so as you are looking for candidates and as you're meeting individuals, you may not meet someone who's a one-to-one match with an opportunity that you have. But if that individual has 80% of the skills that you're looking for, and the 20% that they're missing are skills that you can develop, there may be an opportunity for you to that may be your candidate, right? That might be your person, because they may have the desire to do the role. You connect well with that person, and they need to learn along the way, and they have the energy and the excitement to do that, versus the candidate that has everything, that comes in with low energy and has an attitude. So I always say is really come in with that 80-20 rule. Be open to the possibilities, and you'll never know. You may be meeting the best candidate that's out there. I will tell you a quick story, which is for me. When early in my career, so prior to me getting into HR and talent acquisition, my first role out of college was in construction. And so I worked for a large home builder, and I was a construction superintendent, and I managed the construction of homes. And I did that for a few years, and I was like, it's okay. I mean, I had fun, but I really didn't have a lot of passion in it. Mm-hmm. But one part of my job was going to career booths at my alma mater, University of Florida. And so I said, okay, I'm going to find a job where I'm going to go do that. And I applied and got a lot of no's. But I got hired by a small company, small agency, and I started out as a coordinator. Took a pay cut because I didn't have any experience, which was fine. I just knew this is what I wanted to do. I had 80%, the other 20% they trained, and the rest is history. And so it's definitely looking outside the box and looking for what the possibilities are, and that's where I think small businesses will find great talent.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that response, Shannon. We did get some questions in the Q&A box. So our first question is, how much latitude do you have in bumping up a salary for a new hire?
So I would say as an organization, as a business owner, you have as much latitude as you want, right? However, you want to think about things like pay equity, and ensuring that you are fairly paying individuals, not only that are with your organization, but new ones that come in that are competitive to the skill sets that they bring to the table. And so, for example, at Republic, we have ranges that we stay within, and we want to make sure that with any offer that we make, we are comparing that against the other individuals in that role, so that we don't have pay equity issues, right? So that we don't have, women making less than men, or that we don't have two people in the same role and their salaries are exponentially different from one another, unless the experience requires it, right? So I give an example. If you have an accountant who's an accountant not as fresh out of school, and maybe they're making $40,000, and you have an experienced accountant who's been doing it for 10 years and they're making 65, those are things that you can explain. What you don't want is hiring two new grads, and one you're paying 40 and one you're paying 55, and they have the exact same experience. So you just want to be careful about those things.
Excellent. Great answer. Are there other options for how to structure pay for a part-time employee outside of just paying hourly? I would ideally like to pay per project or per client.
Yeah, so you can. So there's other things outside of hourly pay, right? You could do things like a flat rate. So you can do flat rate, more contract rate. I've even seen things like piece rate as well, where you get paid by, you deliver something and you can get paid based on milestones as well. So there are things that you can do to get creative and pay. And so, for example, if you wanted to do some per project, maybe you pay someone $1,000 to start the project, and then they deliver XYZ piece of the project, then they get another payment and the other payment and so on and so forth. So you can definitely get creative with pay, particularly if you are, if they're contract pay rates versus W-2 employees and things like that.
Excellent. I'm going to jump around a little bit in the Q&A because we have a great question that I think a lot of people have in mind, and I think that would be a good way to end. So jumping ahead, how effective is it to use external recruiters?
That is always the question, right? And so here's what I would say. And honestly, to be fair, I use third-party recruiters all the time. And this is to be fair, I started out as a third-party recruiter, so I get it, and I get it 100% because those fees, every time I get those invoices, they are not cheap. And this is what I would say is there are two ways to look at leveraging third-party recruiters. They can be really effective when you have the right partner that has the relationships and the database to deliver against the need that you have. And one of the ways that I sort of justify the use of third-party recruiters is that has the job been open long enough where I've saved on the SG&A headcount that covers the fee for the recruiter. So, and that is the way, and that's the way you kind of do that. Now, particularly in hard to fill type roles, a third-party recruiter is somebody who is in that space every day, creating relationships, building talent pools, and all that kind of good stuff. And so, yes, it can be expensive, but when leveraged appropriately for the right roles, can be a real value add to get things done. Because you also have to think about what is it costing your business not to have that role filled. So it may not be how much it may not be something that you see right away, but over the long term, the quicker you can get that position filled, the quicker you can start earning against that role or whatever the case may be, depending on your role. That can serve you in the long run.
Excellent. And Lisa had shared a question in the Q&A that I know that we hear quite a bit. We are currently finding it difficult to fill in-office AP/AR roles as candidates want to work from home. Are others experiencing this, and how are you overcoming the desire to work from home with flexible hours? We had 2 start and quit within a few days because they said they wanted to work at home and it was too hard to come back in the office.
Yeah, and Lisa, that is a reality, right? And I think every organization is experiencing some form of this. And as an organization, what you have to do is you have to take a look at, and what I would say is think about what the future of work looks like. One of the things that the pandemic has done is it's really reshaped what work looks like for employees and businesses. And so traditionally, there's always the idea that, people need to be in the office. I need to see you to make sure you're working. And the pandemic has fundamentally shifted that paradigm in the opposite direction. And people have been doing the roles and working from home, and a lot of organizations have been operating effectively in that space. And it's been, and individuals have come accustomed to that, and it's become harder and harder to get them to kind of come back into the traditional office environment. And particularly as we look at right now where, COVID is still happening, there's still a lot of uncertainty. I think I would just say really is we started here before COVID, we shifted all the way to here now. At some point, we'll probably get back in the middle, but we're not there yet, right? And so with the idea that candidates have options, you're gonna have to kind of rethink how you're looking at work, what roles do you really need to be in the office? And ultimately, what are you going to do to differentiate yourself and be competitive in the market? And that's why you're seeing people leave, is they're getting it somewhere else. And so that's the challenge. And even large organizations, we're doing the same thing.
No, it's definitely a question that many people are asking. So thank you, Shannon, so much. Unfortunately, we are at time for today's session. We appreciate your time and answering all of these questions. I am sure we will get a few more questions to send your way. But thank you to all of you who joined for this Thursday session. We hope to see you back here again Tuesday at 9 o'clock. And have a great weekend. And thank you again, Shannon, for your time this morning.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Have a great rest of your day.